What I need to tell you tonight could change the way you look at leftovers forever, because the danger in your kitchen may not be what you cook first, but what you keep heating over and over again after 60. And when I show you food number 1, the one most people think is perfectly fine because it came from a backyard grill or a nice family dinner, you're going to understand why doctors worry about it so much. I'm Dr. Sandra Whitemore, and this is one of those warnings I wish every older American could hear before the next trip to the microwave. Before we begin, please subscribe so more seniors can protect their health, avoid dangerous food habits, and stay informed today. Here's what makes this so serious, and so easy to miss. Pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancers in America, not because it is always the most common, but because it is so often found late. People ignore the small signals. They brush off the bloating, the upper belly discomfort, the back pain, the sudden blood sugar changes, the loss of appetite, the strange fatigue. And meanwhile, day after day, they keep feeding the body the same harmful compounds created by high heat, charring, smoking, frying, and repeated reheating. Now, I need to be careful and honest with you. One reheated meal does not magically cause pancreatic cancer, but repeated exposure to certain food chemicals, especially in an aging body already dealing with inflammation, excess weight, diabetes, or smoking history, may raise the risk in ways most people never think about. Let me tell you about Carol and Dennis from Columbus, Ohio, because their routine is so common it could be happening in your house tonight, without a second thought. Dennis was 72, retired, practical, and proud of never wasting food. If there were leftover fries from lunch, he reheated them. If there was extra bacon from breakfast, he crisped it again the next morning. If there was barbecue from Sunday, he warmed it until the edges got dark because he liked that fresh-off-the-grill taste. Carol told me, "We thought reheating made it safer." And that sentence has stayed with me. Because reheating can kill germs when done properly, yes, but reheating certain foods the wrong way can also create a second problem. You're not just warming food. You may be concentrating damage, deepening browning, and creating more of the exact compounds cancer researchers and digestive specialists worry about most. To understand why this matters after 60, you need to understand your pancreas just a little better. Because this small organ sits quietly behind the stomach doing two huge jobs every day. First, it helps control blood sugar by releasing insulin. Second, it produces digestive enzymes that help break down food, especially fats and proteins. When the body is repeatedly hit with inflammatory stress, blood sugar swings, heavy fatty meals, smoking exposure, excess weight, or harmful cooking byproducts, the pancreas lives in a harsher internal environment. That does not mean every problem leads to cancer. But it does mean your margin for error gets smaller as you get older. The body you had at 30 could shrug off some bad habits. The body you have at 60, 70, or 80 is often less forgiving, and that is why the foods on this list matter so much more than most people realize. By the end of this video, you'll know the 5 foods I would stop reheating immediately if I were trying to protect an older pancreas. And I'm going to count them down because food number 1 is the biggest mistake of all. Some of these are breakfast foods. Some are takeout favorites. Some are comfort foods Americans grew up on and still trust. That's what makes this warning so unsettling. These aren't exotic ingredients. These are ordinary foods sitting in ordinary refrigerators in Florida, Texas, Michigan, Arizona, and every other state in the country. So stay with me, because somewhere on this list is probably the one item in your home you have never questioned. And once you hear the reason behind it, you may never heat it the same way again. Let's start with food number 5, and this one surprises almost everybody, because it seems like the least threatening item in the kitchen. Food number 5 is leftover French fries, hash browns, and heavily browned potato wedges. Why potatoes? Because when starchy foods like potatoes are cooked at high temperatures, especially when they are fried or roasted until dark brown, a compound called acrylamide can form. The darker and more aggressively browned the potato, the bigger the concern becomes. Now think about what reheating usually looks like in real life. Nobody reheats fries until they're soft and pale. People reheat them to bring the crunch back. They air fry them, skillet fry them, toaster oven them, or microwave them, and then finish them in a hot pan until the edges get darker than they were the first time. That means the very thing people are trying to restore, that crisp brown bite, may also be increasing the compounds they should be limiting. I want you to picture Earl from Tulsa, Oklahoma, because his story is one I hear over and over. Earl lived alone, watched his budget, and loved stopping at the same burger place twice a week. He'd eat half the meal for lunch and save the fries for later. But later didn't mean once. Sometimes those fries went from the fridge to the microwave, back to the fridge, then into a skillet the next morning with eggs. He thought he was being smart, economical, disciplined. What he did not realize was that he was taking a food already created under very high heat and exposing it to more high heat again. Potatoes are not evil. That is not the message. The message is that dark, fried, starchy leftovers reheated to bring them back to life are one of the worst possible habits if you are trying to reduce unnecessary exposure to potentially harmful compounds after 60. And here's the part most people miss. The problem is not just the potato itself. It is the combination of deep browning, reheated oil residue, and the way these foods usually travel with other problems. Fries rarely come alone. They come with drive-through meals, sugary sodas, salty burgers, late eating, blood sugar spikes, and extra weight around the middle. And excess body weight and diabetes are already part of the pancreatic risk conversation in older adults. So when someone tells me, but it's just a few fries, I say, no, it's not just the fries. It is the whole pattern. If you want potatoes, choose boiled, steamed, or lightly roasted potatoes. If you do have leftover roasted potatoes, reheat them gently before they get dark again. Golden is one thing. Brown and brittle is another. That line matters more than people think. Food number 4 is bacon and breakfast sausage. Especially when you cook them once, refrigerate them, and then reheat them until they are even crispier the second time. This is such a common senior habit because it feels convenient. People make a big batch on Sunday, stack it in a container, and then pull out a few strips each morning. It sounds harmless. It sounds organized. It sounds like the kind of routine a doctor would applaud. But cured breakfast meats come with a problem long before the second heating starts. Many of them contain nitrates or nitrites used in processing and preservation. Then they get exposed to high heat. Then they get browned. Then some people reheat them again until the fat tightens, the edges curl, and the surface gets almost glassy. That is exactly the point where I want you to stop and think very carefully about what you are eating. Breakfast meats are dangerous in a very deceptive way. Because Americans associate them with comfort, routine, and normalcy. A strip of bacon next to eggs, sausage beside toast, ham in an omelet. It feels like tradition, not risk. But processed meats have been under cancer scrutiny for years, and high heat makes them even more concerning. Some compounds tied to processed meat come from the curing process itself. Others form when the meat is fried, browned, or smoked. And older adults often reheat bacon in the fastest, hottest way possible because nobody wants floppy leftover bacon. They want it loud, crispy, and almost brittle. The second heating is often harsher than the first. If you are over 60 and already dealing with prediabetes, high blood pressure, belly weight, or chronic inflammation, this is one of those quiet habits that can keep pushing the body in the wrong direction while seeming completely ordinary. Let me tell you about Gloria from Mesa, Arizona, because she taught me how innocent these routines can look from the inside. Gloria made breakfast for herself every morning after her husband passed away. 2 eggs, toast, and the same bacon she cooked in bulk every Saturday. She thought she had found a stable, easy routine that gave her comfort and kept her from eating junk food. But her blood sugar was climbing, her digestion felt heavier, and she had begun assuming that feeling off after breakfast was just part of aging. It wasn't one dramatic symptom. It was the quiet pileup of little things. That is what makes food habits so dangerous. They do not usually announce themselves. They become wallpaper. So if bacon or sausage is on autopilot in your kitchen, I want you to break that autopilot now. Choose it rarely, not daily. And if it has already been cooked once, do not reheat it until it looks like a burnt ribbon. Now, some people will say, fine, I'll just buy the nitrate-free version. And I need you to hear this clearly. Labels can make you feel safer than you really are. A cleaner-looking package does not erase the fact that this is still processed meat, still salty, still fatty, and still usually eaten after frying or reheating at high temperature. Safer is not the same as safe. Better is not the same as best. If you want a breakfast that protects your pancreas and your metabolism, think simpler. Fresh eggs, oatmeal, Greek yogurt if you tolerate it, fruit with nuts, whole grain toast with avocado. Even leftover beans are better than turning your morning into a second round of crisped cured meat. I am not telling you that you can never touch bacon again. I am telling you that after 60, bulk cooking it and repeatedly reheating it into a dark, crackling strip is one of the habits I would stop first. Food number 3 is deli meat, hot dogs, and lunch meat sandwiches reheated at home, even though most people do not think of them as cooked twice. But they are often processed, preserved, and then heated again in skillets, microwaves, toaster ovens, or pressed sandwiches until the meat steams, shrinks, and browns at the edges. I see this all the time with hot ham and cheese sandwiches, fried bologna, toasted turkey melts, and hot dogs browned in a pan until the outside splits. Seniors love these meals because they are soft, easy to chew, inexpensive, and quick. The problem is that processed lunch meats and hot dogs are already not the best choice when eaten regularly. Add Add reheating, browning, and frequent use, and you have a routine that deserves far more suspicion than it gets. What worries me is not one hot dog at a baseball game. It is the home pattern of relying on these foods again and again. Here's where this gets especially concerning. People tend to think that if a food is fully cooked and sold ready to eat, reheating it must make it cleaner, smarter, and safer. But with processed meats, the health question is not only bacterial safety. It is also what repeated heat does to a product that already contains preservatives, salt, and in many cases, curing agents. Think about the senior lunch pattern in America: soup from a can, chips, and a hot sandwich made with deli meat. Or hot dogs from the fridge reheated 2 days later because they were already cooked. Or chopped ham tossed into scrambled eggs and browned again. These are not rare exceptions. They are common refrigerator decisions. And common refrigerator decisions are often where long-term health is built or broken. If your lunch meat has been sitting in the fridge and your instinct is to make it hotter, saltier, crispier, and browner, that is your signal to pause. I had a gentleman named Roger from Des Moines, Iowa. Tell me something I will never forget. He said, I stopped eating steak because I thought that was the risky stuff. But I never once worried about my turkey sandwich. That is exactly the trap. We fear the dramatic foods and ignore the frequent foods. We blame the backyard barbecue and forget the packaged meats that show up 5 times a week. Roger used deli turkey, ham, and salami almost every day because they were easy on his dentures and easy on his budget. But ease is not the same as safety. Convenience foods earn trust quickly, and trust makes us sloppy. If you want a sandwich, use fresh cooked chicken, tuna, egg salad made carefully, or even mashed chickpeas. If you do use deli meat, keep it occasional, keep it cold or only lightly warmed, and stop pressing it in a skillet until it sweats grease and darkens. That is where convenience turns into damage. Before I show you food number 2, I need to tell you something that may save you from making a dangerous mistake. And that is this. Symptoms tied to the pancreas do not always scream. They whisper first. New indigestion that will not settle. Pain in the upper abdomen that seems to wrap into the back. Nausea after fatty meals. Unexplained weight loss. Blood sugar that suddenly gets harder to control. Greasy or pale stools. Deep fatigue that feels different from ordinary tiredness. Yellowing of the skin or eyes. Dark urine. These things should not be dismissed as just getting older. And the reason I'm telling you this in the middle of a food video is because people often normalize both the symptoms and the food habits at the same time. They say, I always eat this way, and I always feel this way, and that combination can delay help longer than you think. Food number 2 is fried chicken, chicken tenders, and chicken nuggets reheated until the breading gets hard again. Especially leftovers from fast food places, grocery deli counters, or takeout boxes. This category worries me because it tricks health-conscious people. They hear chicken and relax. They assume it must be lighter than beef, safer than sausage, and better than bacon. But once chicken is breaded, deep-fried, salted, and then reheated again, you are not dealing with a simple piece of chicken anymore. You are dealing with browned flour, oxidized fats, heavy seasoning, and a food people usually try to restore by using intense heat. Think about what happens when someone reheats fried chicken. They do not want it soft. They want the skin crisp. They want the breading crunchy. They want the grease to taste fresh again. So they blast it in an oven, air fryer, or skillet until the outer layer gets darker and the oils seem to wake back up. That is exactly the direction I do not want older adults going. And there is another layer to this that almost nobody talks about. Fried chicken leftovers often come with reused commercial oils, heavy breading, and a huge calorie load. That matters because pancreatic risk is not only about one chemical here or there. It is also about the metabolic environment in which your pancreas has to operate. When you repeatedly eat foods that worsen weight gain, insulin resistance, and blood sugar instability, you create stress inside the very organ you are trying to protect. That is why I get frustrated when people reduce this conversation to, is this food toxic or not? Health is usually not that simple. The real question is, what direction does this habit push your body? Reheated fried chicken usually pushes it toward more inflammation, more heaviness, more blood sugar strain, and more exposure to heat-damaged fats and browned coatings. That is not a direction I would ever recommend after 60. Let me tell you about Walter from Birmingham, Alabama, because his story brings this home in a painful way. Walter was 69, loved church lunches, loved football weekends, and loved taking home extra fried chicken. He would put it in the fridge, then reheat it in a countertop oven until the crust snapped. He wasn't reckless. He wasn't living on candy and soda. He just thought chicken meant safe. But over time, his waistline crept up, his A1C crept up, and he began having deep upper abdominal discomfort after heavy meals. What shook him was not a cancer diagnosis, thank goodness. It was a pancreatitis scare that put him in the emergency room and finally made him realize that the body had been sending signals for months. That is why I am so direct about these foods. I do not want you waiting for a hospital visit to change a habit that could have been changed tonight with one refrigerator decision. If you absolutely keep fried chicken leftovers in the house, then make one rule. Never reheat them to chase the original crunch. Eat them cold if you must, strip off the breading, or warm them gently just enough to get them safe and edible. Better yet, stop treating fast food leftovers like meal prep. They are not meal prep. They are emergency leftovers at best. A fresh baked chicken breast, a piece of salmon, turkey chili, lentil soup, cottage cheese with fruit, or a simple turkey and bean bowl will do your body far more good than trying to revive a fried coating with more heat. And if you are someone who says, "But I hate wasting food," then listen to me carefully. Wasting food is frustrating. Wasting health is worse. A $10 box of leftovers is not worth weeks of inflammation, metabolic stress, and repeated exposure to the very heat-damaged fats you would never knowingly choose if they were described honestly. Now we've reached food number 1, and this is the one I need every senior in America to hear all the way through. Because it is the most dangerous mixture of false safety, family tradition, and repeated reheating. Food number 1 is leftover burgers, steaks, barbecue, ribs, brisket, and meatloaf reheated until browned, charred, or smoky again. This is the biggest problem on the list because it pulls together almost every issue at once. Red meat, high heat, grilling, smoking, pan-searing, charred edges, fatty drippings, and the American habit of reheating leftovers until they taste fresh cooked. And unlike some of the other foods on this list, this category has a stronger connection to the specific compounds cancer researchers have studied in relation to pancreatic risk. When muscle meats are cooked at very high temperatures, chemicals can form that are known to damage cells in ways experts take seriously. That includes foods people proudly call well done and extra crispy around the edges. This is where the backyard grill becomes more than just a summer memory. When fat drips onto flames or hot surfaces and smoke rises back onto the meat, compounds can stick to the food. When meat is pan-fried or grilled hard enough to form a dark crust, other compounds can form in that browned outer layer. And then what do people do the next day? They put the burger in a skillet, they toss the steak into a hot cast iron pan. They warm the ribs until the sugary sauce bubbles and blackens. They microwave meatloaf and then finish it under the broiler because they want the edges caramelized again. That second browning is where I want you to stop. The issue is not just that the meat was once grilled. It is that people keep trying to recreate the smoky crust, the sear, the char, the sizzle. And every time you chase those flavors, you may be pushing the chemistry in the wrong direction. Let me tell you about Henry from Fort Worth, Texas, because if you live in America, his routine will sound familiar. Henry loved cookouts. On Sundays, he grilled burgers, steaks, and sausage for the week. He called it meal prep. His daughter thought it was smart. His neighbors admired his discipline. But Henry liked his meat dark. Then when leftovers came out of the refrigerator, he reheated them in a skillet until they looked alive again. Brown outside, steaming inside, crust back on top. That's what tasted right to him. He told me, "I thought the danger was rare steak. I figured well done meant safer." And that misunderstanding is everywhere. Safer from undercooking germs is one issue. Safer from heat-created chemical exposure is another. They are not the same. Well done is not automatically the healthier choice, especially when you are talking about red meat browned hard the first time and then reheated aggressively the second time. Now, I need to say this plainly, because this is the medical center of the whole video. If there is one reheating habit I would ask older adults to stop immediately, it is taking already cooked red meat or barbecue and reheating it until it darkens more than it already was. The pancreas is one of the organs researchers worry about when it comes to frequent intake of heavily browned, fried, or barbecued meats. Add obesity, diabetes, smoking history, low activity, and advancing age, and the picture gets even more concerning. Again, this is not about panic. It is about pattern. It is about whether your kitchen routine keeps adding fuel to a fire you cannot see. If your refrigerator contains leftover steak, burger patties, ribs, brisket, or meatloaf, the goal is not to recreate the grill. The goal is to warm gently, eat sooner rather than later, trim any blackened parts, and never keep rebrowning the same meat for taste. I also need to talk about leftovers and food safety for just a moment, because some older adults make the opposite mistake. They hear warnings about reheating and think eating things cold from the fridge is always safer. It isn't. Bacteria are a separate issue from heat-created compounds. Both matter. Food should be refrigerated promptly, kept cold, and reheated thoroughly when needed. But that reheating should be careful, not aggressive. Safe temperature is one question. Char and browning are another. You can meet the first goal without chasing the second. So please do not leave cooked food out for half the evening and then think a blazing reheat will solve everything. It won't. Good food handling and smart reheating go together. They are partners. And for adults over 65, that partnership matters even more because foodborne illness hits harder and recovery can take longer. There's something else I want you to hear, and I mean this with real care. Many people over 60 live alone. And when you live alone, leftovers become emotional as much as practical. A big batch of food feels safe. A full refrigerator feels secure. Reheating the same meal brings routine and comfort to an empty kitchen. I understand that. Truly, I do. But comfort can sometimes hide danger. The goal is not to take comfort away from you. The goal is to build a different kind of comfort, the comfort of knowing your habits are not silently working against you. A bowl of soup, a plate of salmon and vegetables, warm oatmeal at night, a simple turkey and bean dish, fruit and yogurt, eggs with spinach, a baked potato without a burnt crust. Those are comfort foods too. They just do not come with the same burden of repeated high-heat damage. And if you are someone caring for a parent, a spouse, or an older neighbor, this is where you come in. Watch the reheating habits. Open the refrigerator. Look at what is actually there. Is it a container of brisket being browned night after night? Is it bacon cooked in bulk every weekend? Is it chicken tenders from a fast food box getting freshened up in an air fryer every afternoon? Is it hot dogs, deli ham, and processed turkey becoming the backbone of lunch because chewing is hard and energy is low? These are the details that matter. People do not usually say, I am increasing my cancer risk. They say, I'm just finishing leftovers. That is why family awareness matters so much. Help them stock gentler foods. Help them portion meals better. Help them keep only what they can eat safely and sensibly, instead of creating a fridge full of second-round temptations. I want to come back to pancreatic cancer for one final reason, and it's this. It is one of those diseases people fear, but very few people connect it to the ordinary patterns of daily life. They know smoking is dangerous. They know obesity matters. They may know diabetes raises concern, but they do not realize that the kitchen habits feeding those conditions also matter. The way we cook, the way we store, the way we reheat, the way we rely on processed and charred foods, all of it forms a picture. You are painting that picture every week, whether you mean to or not. And after 60, your body reads that picture more clearly than ever. So do not wait for symptoms to force your attention. Use tonight as the moment you lower the heat, trim the char, change the leftovers, and protect an organ that rarely complains until something is seriously wrong. If you have had upper abdominal pain, back pain, yellowing of the eyes, unexplained weight loss, greasy stools, or blood sugar changes that seem new or strange, please do not sit on that. Talk to your doctor. Get evaluated. Do not assume it is just stress, just indigestion, just age, or just something you ate. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it is not. The earlier the pancreas is checked when something feels off, the better. And if everything turns out fine, wonderful. That peace of mind is worth it. I would rather have you be cautious than late. I would rather you look a little over-careful than ignore a pattern that deserves attention. Your future health is worth a phone call, a visit, a lab test, and a serious conversation. So here's your challenge for the next 7 days. And I want you to actually do this. Open your refrigerator tonight and remove one repeat offender. Just one. Maybe it's the bacon container. Maybe it's the box of fries. Maybe it's the deli ham. Maybe it's the leftover barbecue you keep crisping at lunchtime. Replace it with one gentler option you can eat without punishing it with heat. Then notice how often your old habit was automatic. That awareness alone is powerful. Health does not usually collapse in a single moment. It erodes through repetition. And the good news is that protection works the same way. Small, smart decisions, repeated consistently, can change far more than people think. If this video helped you, I want you to do 3 things before you leave. First, subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to keep bringing you these doctor-level warnings in plain English. Second, share this with someone over 60 who reheats everything until it looks burnt, because they may have no idea what they are doing to themselves. Third, leave a comment and tell me which of these 5 foods is most common in your kitchen. I read those comments, and they help me know what to cover next. Protect your pancreas. Protect your future. And the next time you reach for leftovers, remember Carol, Dennis, Gloria, Walter, Henry, and maybe remember that the safest choice is not always the tastiest looking one. I'll see you in the next video.